I'm Angel Donovan, and this is the Dating Skills Podcast. This is a 14-year ongoing mission to discover the truth about what works in dating, sex, and relationships, to become a better man. Join me as I leave no stone unturned, chase down every expert, role model, and mentor with insights to get us to that goal as fast as possible. This show is about bringing you the best of that information so that you can take it in and change your life for the better, step by step, episode by episode. Angel Donovan here for another episode of Dating Skills Podcast. We're at episode 50. We made it. Thanks, guys. Thanks for all your support to help us get here. It's been great. And this last week, we actually hit number 20 in the iTunes ranking for self-help. We're in the self-help category, of course, because we're helping you make your lives better. That is pretty cool. It's pretty awesome. And I would love to get in the top 10, because what happens when you get in the top 10 is that you get a lot more exposure. You know, you appear more in iTunes. And to do that, what you can do to help us is just write a review if you haven't done so already. So you do that in iTunes. If you haven't done that, please take a moment out right now just to do it. It would make a huge difference to us and help us to get out and help more guys. Today, we're talking about one way to meet women. Now, there are 3 different ways to meet women that you may have heard about before in this podcast or on the site. There is cold approaching. So you're approaching women that you don't know. So we call it cold instead of warm. That could be in a variety of situations during the day or in the evening in bars and clubs, which is typical for most guys, of course. Then you have social circles. So if you become more social in your life and you get involved in more social circles, now these could be all sorts of communities. These can be groups of friends. This can be work. This can be the college you go to. It can be hobbies, classes, and so on, so on, so on. If you get more involved in more social circles like this in different areas of your life will become more social and you'll be meeting more women naturally. The third way, of course, is online dating, which is also the one that's grown like astronomically over the last 10 or 15 years, right? So it's a lot more commonplace than it was before. There's a couple of things that are interesting about online dating, especially if you're a newbie, is that it's kind of easier to get started with it because like with the cold approaching, you know, it makes a lot of guys nervous, like you're approaching these women that you don't know and trying to strike up conversations. There's a lot of pressure all at one time. But with online dating, you know, it's a bit more paced out. So it makes it a little bit easier. You don't have to get so anxious. Myself, my first steps when I was studying this stuff, I actually did it on online dating. I spent a couple of weeks or so applying some of the concepts I was learning about attraction and stuff to what I was, you know, to online dating and experimenting there. You know, so it can be a good place to start with because of that, because it just makes it a little bit easier. You can use all 3 or just one of these approaches to meeting women. Guys, as they get better and better, they tend to use a mix of them all, right? Because you can meet girls in a variety of situations and you just fit into your lifestyle depending on how busy you are and the other factors, what suits you best. Today, we're talking about online dating because last week, Jackson Hunter reviewed a new product called the Click Magnet Dating System, which is a course teaching men how to do the whole online dating thing and meet women effectively there. The thing about this course is it's got a really solid rating. The other thing is that it's really pretty simple. It's good for beginners. And as you guys know by now, we like simple, we like easy to implement. That's really helpful to you guys getting results. And the other thing is that this is really unusual. It's data-driven because the guy who put this course together, his name's Scott Valdez, it's pretty much based on data that he has collected through a company that he has called Virtual Dating Assistants, where basically they manage your online dating. So they do that for a lot of clients and they collect all the data. So they build the profiles, they write the messages and everything. We're going to hear more about this in the interview. We cover a lot of ground in today's episode, and actually, we didn't have enough time to do everything, but you're going to find there's a wealth of information in there. And you'll also see that Scott talks really fast. You can really get a feel for the passion he has for this subject, which is great. So as usual, you can get the transcript and all of the show notes. There's quite a lot today at datingskillsreview.com/DSP50. That's DSP50. Now let's meet Scott. One of the things I love about this show is that every time I ask where someone is, they're in a different place. Where are you today, Scott?
I'm in Medellin, Colombia.
Great. I've heard some great things about that. And it's not the first time I've talked to someone from there. So it seems to attract a few of us dating guys.
Yeah, it's one of the best places that I've been for online dating. I do a lot of traveling. Wherever I go, I use dating sites, as I imagine you could guess. So this is one of the places where it's just you wouldn't ever run out of women to message online, and produces a lot of interesting and attractive dates for me.
Wow. So do you exclusively yourself just use online dating, just nothing else? Or you kind of focus on that all the time in your life and outside?
In my life, I do. I'd say about 95% of the women I date right now are from online. I still do meet women out at bars, but it's rare that. It used to be that I would meet a lot of women out at bars as well, but now it seems like when I'm at a bar, I'm already with a girl that I met on the internet. So it presented basically, I have less single nights out, which is good for me, and I like it that way. But yeah, I do recommend having more balance, maybe even than I have myself. But since I do this for clients, it's good for me to be at the top of my game, and I do actually enjoy it. So I spend a lot of time meeting women online and with them in person, which reduces the amount of girls that I meet out and about.
Well, that's cool. I like to hear about a bit of specialism. It means that the guys can get more value out of you. So it's all good. What's kind of your background? How did you get into this online dating stuff and making a company out of it and everything?
Yeah. So basically, online dating was initially a good idea for me because I met my first serious girlfriend on Facebook. Right when it came out, it was actually a decent place to meet girls. Now it's a terrible place to meet girls.
Right.
But when it first came out, it was much easier to hit a girl's inbox rather than her other box. I don't know if everybody's aware of that, but usually if you send a message to somebody you don't know, they're not going to see it. And back then it was kind of, the Wild West of Facebook, and I was just logged in, saw tons of hot girls, and I was like on my campus, it was only available for my university when it first came out at my school. So, it just was a great place to meet girls, and I met a handful of girls, and then one of them became my girlfriend. And so I thought it was, I saw online as an opportunity to meet women, but then I went to online dating, and once Facebook, I broke up and that relationship ended, and I got online, I sent messages on Facebook, and no one was responding. I was like, what the hell happened? It was such a good place to meet women. What's changed? I didn't really get it. So it just didn't seem like an efficient place to meet women anymore. And so I moved to dating sites because I'd started to hear people talk about Plenty of Fish and some of the other properties. So I started sending messages, and I also struck out there. Didn't have much success. And so I had to go kind of back to the drawing board, start reading blogs, and start educating myself on what the best practices were, so to say, with meeting women online. And so eventually I kind of got it down myself. I started meeting lots of women. It took a lot of time, effort, and energy, but I did figure it out on my own. And then I started to work for a American company that was working me pretty hard in terms of just the amount of hours I was working. It was a startup. And so I just decided, hey, what I'm doing is really repetitive. Why don't I just get somebody, like a younger guy that's, just in college or whatever, pay him, have him do the messaging for me. And that way I don't have to deal with it. I can just go on the dates. So I ended up doing that. I hired a guy on Craigslist that was a creative writing student that wanted some extra work on the side. I hired him for, not much more than minimum wage. Yeah. And ended up, it took a little while at the beginning to get things to flow and get him to really do things the right way. But once he got it down.
Just to stop you there, what year was this?
Yeah. This is, when I was starting to outsource my dating, this is about 2008.
Okay. Did you ever see, there's a video out there where Tim Ferriss describes how he did something similar, where he outsourced. He just did it one time as some kind of experiment, and he hired a whole bunch of teams to work on different dating sites, and he got a whole bunch of dates just for a few days all lined up. So he did it as a one-off kind of thing. Did you ever see that?
Yeah, I did. He took a really different approach than I did, but there's a similar idea. He, basically hired, low-paid Filipino assistants to send all of his emails. He had actually Jamaicans on the team. I don't think but they were pretty low-paid overall. And a lot of them, half of the people that were working on it weren't even native English speakers, which for me is mind-blowing to know that he did have success with that.
Right, it might have been just sheer volume. I wondered about that too.
Yeah, it was probably very, very, very high volume and probably a fairly low response rate. But he's not a bad-looking guy either, and he's pretty tall, fit guy.
Okay, yeah. So you had this guy working for you, and it was going well.
Yeah. It went, at the beginning it was a little bit rough around the edges, but once we actually got the process down, it worked really well. I mean, he wasn't probably wasn't quite as good as I was doing on my own, but he was up there. And so I was saving a lot of time by not spending it on the dating sites and just enjoying more dates with the women I wanted to meet. And for me, it worked great. And that's kind of how my company started is I had my brother asking me about it. I had friends asking me about it because I would tell kind of my core group of friends and family what I was doing, and a lot of them were interested in the idea. They thought it was really cool to be able to get dates without having to do anything. And so I just realized, with all these guys that I know that would be interested in this kind of thing, why don't I start a service and do it, professionally.
So it's kind of like a subversion. I mean, like I was living in China for a while, and they still have all of these agencies there. That's pretty much what online dating is for them still, I think. So, you pay someone and they go and look for someone for you. And it's kind of like headhunting in a way. So it's a little bit, it's offline, of course, and stuff. But it's kind of, I guess, a similar outsourcing model.
Yeah, it is similar. Yeah, I mean, that's the more traditional application of, hiring someone to find matches for you. And, they call them like professional matchmakers in the States. They're super expensive, but they're for guys that really are very marriage-minded, where my clients tend to be a little less marriage-minded. A lot of them do want to get married, but they're not in a rush. Like somebody who hires a matchmaker is kind of ready to get hitched. So
it's a big investment.
Yeah, it's also a big investment. I mean, matchmakers in the States, they usually charge at least $5,000, some of them upwards of $25,000, $30,000 just to get started.
Wow, that's big numbers. Okay, so all right, you got started. So what year did the business actually start?
The business we founded Virtual Dating Assistants in June of 2009.
Cool, very good. Now, how old are you now? Where do you
29.
live? So you said you live in Medellin, but like, is that your lifestyle? Are you always living there, or where do you live normally?
No. I've been bouncing around a lot. I've actually in the past, the past 2.5 years, I've lived in like 7 countries. So I bounce a lot. I've been mainly in South America and kind of Central Eastern Europe. Yeah, for the most part. And I tend to focus on cities that are at least populations of around 2 million where online dating's caught on. And most cities in the world where anything over 2 million, you got plenty of online dating opportunity. But I do try to kind of take a look at the databases before I move there just to make sure that there are a lot of attractive girls. And so I move there. I just meet women online. A lot of times I'll do a little bit of, building a pipeline before I actually get there. Just have some girls kind of waiting. It's good to have advice about where to live, what how to find an apartment. That's pretty cool. I try to put into work a little bit. Some of the girls that I meet online, and it makes moving around like I'm doing a lot more comfortable because you're never feeling lonely if you've always got girls around.
Right, you're already meeting people. Yeah, that's great. It's kind of funny. I just chuckled there because like whenever I'm going to move somewhere, I research different things. I've got my own criteria for somewhere I want to go, and it's normally things like internet we were just talking about a second ago, and like access to organic food or whatever, like other crazy stuff I've got going on in my life. And you have online dating, so different criteria.
The only thing, but it's definitely an important part of my.
But it pays to do the research up front. Yeah, so I guess you learn it the same way I do. That it makes a big difference to how it goes.
Yeah, I can. Mm-hmm.
How many women would you say you've dated over this time? Like you've been on dates with, basically.
I have no idea.
Give me a rough. I mean, because it's like how many dates does like this online dating lifestyle generate roughly? I mean,
well, as many as you want, as long as there are enough women to email. It's and it's
you're probably an extreme example because you've been moving around. So like someone who went crazy in one city would eventually kind of like burn out the whole city, I guess, and there would be no date
really
stuff.
Though, because the thing to remember about online dating is that the dating sites they churn, they switch out about 80% of their members within 3 months. So there's constantly fresh women to email. As long as you're in a big enough city, you really should never run out of women to email. 2 million plus, multiple dating sites. I mean, in speaking generally, I have a lot of clients in situations like that have been getting 5-10 phone numbers a month for the past 2 years. You don't really run out of women to email and to meet. So and obviously, like when moving to new cities all the time, it is kind of nice to have a fresh database and just build to and kind of go crazy in it. And not have to pay attention to like who's new, who I've already emailed, that kind of thing. Yeah. But it's at the same time like it's not a game changer for me versus another guy who's staying more permanently in a specific city.
Yeah. Well, let's put a rough number on it. 100, 200, 500. 1,000.
Well, we're talking 2.5 years, so I don't do more than probably 10 to 15 dates a month. I've had months, where I've been on a date almost every single day, a different girl. But the thing is, that's not sustainable because I don't like to just constantly play around. I like to have a stable girl, and at some point that ends. So that's the reason it's hard to predict. Like in a good month, I would go on almost around 30 dates a month.
Right.
Some days
when
I'd
you're
stack.
single,
yeah, when I'm single. But other months I don't. But in the last 2.5 years, we're talking hundreds.
How many dates do you go on typically before you find a girl that you're like, I like this girl, I'm going to have a relationship? Or is that really random? Or it depends on your mood more than...
It depends on my mood. It depends how long I'm planning on staying in that city. It depends. Yeah, it just depends if I was just in a relationship or not. But I really like at least 1 out of 2 of the girls that I meet.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and maybe but 1 out of 4 of them I would really want.
Well, that's really interesting. That's something I want to get into a little bit later about how you map the virtual world to the real world, and if you make any mistakes, and when you're selecting women to meet and stuff. But we'll get into that into a bit. So, how many relationships have you had in your life so far?
Well, can you?
Really?
What would be a relationship exactly? Like
so how do you? Tell me how you would define a relationship, and let's just go with your definition.
Oof.
I mean, for me, if you're seeing a girl, and you're hanging out a few times a week, and it goes on for 3 months, that's definitely a relationship.
Yeah. Okay, so 3-month rule. So if we're talking 3 months, I would probably say, is this exclusive for 3 months, or is this 3 months while still seeing other people? That makes a big difference. I'd say I think some people have multiple long-term relationships, and they're still relationships. That's why we call them relationships. So I think you can include those. Yeah. Okay. I would probably say somewhere around 30, probably.
Yeah,
33 plus months.
That's a lot of relationships.
I tend to have a stable girl, even if I'm continuing to online date. I have at least one girl over the duration of when I'm staying somewhere that I do see constantly. Like for example, right now I do have a girl that I've been seeing for the past almost 3 months, but she knows. I try to be as honest as possible, and she actually knows. She doesn't want to know any details, but she knows. She was just making jokes last night about me being really easy and basically always checking out girls in front of her and all this stuff, and she doesn't really like it, but she accepts it. And if you're dating around like I am, it's pretty hard to cover it up.
Well, also if you're traveling like you are all the time, I think the girls aren't they're not expecting a really serious relationship. So
that's part of the appeal of what I'm doing right now for me, is that when relationships have a natural expiration date, then the women tend to basically protect themselves a little bit more from becoming too emotionally attached. Right. Which is nice if you don't want anything. Yeah, if you're not looking for anything long term at the moment, it is kind of nice for both parties involved.
Yeah. It's like a mutual decision there. That's good. So how many women have you slept with roughly?
Oh God. I do not want to answer this question.
Okay,
my mom could hear this, but it just online dating. Like when you meet women online, it makes it so much easier for you to get kind of sexual quickly, because the reality is that they feel a higher level of trust, I think, than a girl that you just met at a bar. Obviously, the girl at the bar may be intoxicated at the moment, but a lot of times she's there with a group of friends, and she's not going to go home with you because she's going to look like a slut. You meet a girl online, you meet her out one-on-one. Right. She already feels like she knows you. If she's had you on Facebook, which is part of my own personal strategy, usually I do get girls on Facebook, and I have a really strong Facebook presence because it's something that I pay a lot of attention to. Yeah. Then, the amount of social credibility it gives me, and just the amount of trust that it builds, her being able to see pictures of me with all of my friends, my family, everything. Right. It adds another dimension of trust where she knows, or at least she feels like she's knowing with, and there's also who she's dealing with, and there's also a bit of time distortion that occurs in terms of her feeling like she's known you possibly for longer than she has. If you exchange several messages over the course of a week. It's not like a girl that you just met the night before at a bar. So the reality is that I found that it's much easier to get sexual with women that you meet online quickly than women that you meet other places, unless you're dealing with a very ideal scenario at bars where a girl is alone, or she was with a friend who's also with another guy, or she just doesn't give a shit.
Right. So it's a combination of logistics and kind of trust there. So,
exactly.
Like, as you say, she's on her own and she's not worried about what other people think. And there's also, she know all this stuff about you from your profile and from your Facebook as well as you're using there. So, yeah. So, I mean, I could actually see that's kind of healthier in a way, right?
Yeah. Well, it works out well for us guys. That's for sure. And yeah, I mean, for her, it adds. She feels like she knows who she's dealing with. If something happens, it's not like she only has my cell phone number. She has my Facebook account. So, even of her coming back to my place, I think she feels more comfortable that she could have, for example, send a link. And I know some girls do this. Yeah. They'll tell their friend who they're going out with, in case anything happens. Whereas if you just met at a bar, she doesn't even have you on Facebook or whatever. Obviously, at a bar, you can get her on Facebook too. But in a lot of cases, we don't actually go through that step as well. And online, it's a lot more natural since you're already online. And so, yeah, I mean, it adds definitely a level of security to the whole situation, to the whole idea of her coming back with you that you don't necessarily always get offline as easily as you do online.
Excellent. Let's talk a bit about your company and who its clientele are and stuff like that, because it's kind of interesting. So your company is basically outsourced dating. So you guys take it from creating a profile on an online dating site to messaging to getting the date, and then you hand it off to client. Is that how it works?
Yeah. That is essentially how it works. So basically, the easiest way to look at it is imagine that you wanted to meet women online, but you either just weren't doing it already, you weren't having success, or maybe you didn't have just the time to make it successful. So what you do is you pay someone to come in. You can think of them, you can think of us as consultants, whatever. We see what you're doing. We fix it. We make it all work. And then we do it for you. So everything that you would have to do if you wanted to meet women online, we do it. Okay. So, we even do the back and forth messaging, and we book the dates or get the phone numbers. And then all our clients have to do is just simply show up and enjoy. Okay.
All right, cool. So what's the typical profile of people who are using this? You said they're busy, or who's your typical client?
Our typical client is pretty busy. It's a mix between people who just are not having success with online dating and then guys who, are having some success but just realize that it takes a lot of time, kind of like my scenario that kind of led me to end up starting it myself. So it's a mix. I'd say we get more guys that are on the busy side of things. Probably 65% of the guys are the busy ones, and 35% are the guys that just aren't having any luck. And they tend to be between the ages of 28 to 43, kind of in that range, although we do get younger and we do get older, but they tend to be kind of in that kind of sweet spot for single guys. And overall, they're guys that are making some money at work. It's not a super expensive service, but anytime you're forking out, in the hundreds of dollars a month plus on top of your rent, it can get expensive quickly. And so our clients tend to, make upper five figures and above. And so they're pretty, fairly successful guys that like women, want to meet more women, and either don't have the time to do it themselves or don't necessarily want to learn the skills to meet them online that it takes to do it successfully. Most of our clients are, they're either time strapped or don't have the skills to make it successful.
Oh, excellent. So, I read in the Huffington Post, I think it was August 2011, that you had around 30 clients. How many do you have today?
Right now, it varies from month to month, but we are around 100 clients a month.
Okay, yeah, that's a fair number. How many dates has your company set up for people? Do you know? Is this something that would be an interesting statistic?
Yeah. It's in. I don't know the exact number. I'd have to. It's in a system, and I could extract it. Yeah. But we've got to be in the tens of thousands by now. We've been doing this since 2009, setting up a lot of dates per month, and a lot of what we deliver is phone numbers too. So it's sometimes hard to know exactly what a client does with a phone number once we give it to them. But including phone numbers, we're getting up there got to be in the tens of thousands. Cool.
So when I was doing research about your company, I saw in the media in terms of response and reaction to it, which I guess you can see, right? So I saw a bit of bad press from Jezebel outsourcing.com. And I saw some more positive stuff from Huffington Post and some others. What are the kind of different types of reactions that you get for this service?
Well, I think a lot of there are two big misconceptions about the service that we have. And one of them is that, the guys are just lazy. So a lot of our clients are men, and it's pretty obvious when you look at our website that we're mainly targeting men. So women, and that's the reason Jezebel was so negative, is women think it's just a bunch of lazy guys that just don't want to lift a finger and do anything themselves. But really, it's about making your time making the best use of your time. These aren't guys that are lazy. These are guys that prefer to be doing other more productive stuff than sitting around online dating sites all day.
Right.
And the other big misconception is in terms of, it comes from a lot of people that don't really know online dating, and they assume that we're sending a lot of long, like love letter type, long emails, drawn out messages, and we're sending lots of messages online. So in their mind, we're building false relationships, which is really, really untrue. If anyone that's done a lot of online dating knows that it's pretty surface level. You're just exchanging this basic information, sending a few messages, and things happen pretty fast. If you know what you're doing, there's a lot of guys that are afraid to pull the trigger, and maybe they just send a lot of back and forth messages and don't get anywhere with the women. But really, the most effective strategy is a really quick and short messages, not too many of them, and pulling the trigger. And that's what we do. So, that misconception is also false. We're simply facilitating in-person introductions, and we're doing it as efficiently and effectively as possible. And any guy could take what we do and they could do it themselves. I've got a product that teaches guys how to do it themselves, and they could, but it just depends how you want to spend your time. And I think a lot of our clients are smart to be making that kind of decision about what their time's worth and where they want to be spending it. And so I think the misconceptions largely come from people that don't really know what they're talking about. Tends to happen.
So that course you were just talking about was Click Magnet Dating System, which we just recently reviewed, and we thought was pretty damn cool, which is why I got you on here.
That's the one.
So, what kind of positive press do you get?
We do get a lot. We've gotten a lot of write-ups from, reporters that came in. And for example, we had a guy from a publication called Urban Daddy. They're like, they do basically it's like an email magazine type thing. And they came in, they tried out the service, and he loved it, And so we get reporters. The reporters that tend to write the best stuff are the ones that actually get to know us and talk to us. The ones like Jezebel, we never talked to them. They never asked us about how things work. They just wrote a scathing article. So,
just to get something straight. Do you do this for women as well, or is it just guys?
We do this for women as well. Initially, we targeted men, and we decided, man, we're leaving so much money on the table. We got to, basically change our marketing and make it gender neutral. And then we realized over time that even when it was gender neutral, about 80% of our clients were men anyways. And so you have the whole 80-20 rule. Why focus on, so much energy on that market that's only giving you 20% of revenue anyways. So we refocused our marketing back on men. We have a women's site, quote unquote, that you can click on, but most of what we do now is with men.
Yeah. Well, I guess mostly it's men who kind of do the messaging, so that kind of makes more sense for the business model, just because of the natural way things are. Okay, man. So let's talk a little bit about the online dating service as well, because I'm sure you know this really, really well. Which are the best sites to use and why?
Well, it depends what you're looking for, obviously, and I hate to give a vague question, but in general, I do tend to stick with the mainstream sites for myself and all of our clients. So, and it depends, obviously what country you're in, but two that are really big, no matter where you are Plenty of Fish. It's the biggest dating property in the world. That's strictly a dating site. The other one is OkCupid, is pretty big in a lot of international countries as well. So those are two really great sites. Match.com is also a good one for guys in the U.S. If you're in I don't use these sites myself, but I've got a lot of clients that use them. If you're open to the idea of meeting girls that are interested in you for your money that you either have or you don't have, you don't really have to have it. Because nobody's really checking your income statements. But millionairematch.com can be a good site. Sugardaddy.com can be a good site if you want to have some fun with some girls that are looking to be spoiled, but you definitely don't have to spoil them before you get sexual. So I've heard of guys doing that as well. If you're religious guy, Christian Mingle can be a great site, or if you're Jewish, JDate can be a great site. So, but Plenty of Fish actually is full of a lot of women who aren't that attractive, but the ones that are do tend to respond at a pretty high rate. So we've found that we get an extremely high response rate on Plenty of Fish, and then OkCupid is the second mainstream. So we like to focus on those two, and the great thing about those two sites is they're both free, and you can get great results on them without spending a dime.
Okay. Yeah, just a few you didn't mention there that I know are also big is like Badoo, Zoosk, and eHarmony. What's your opinion on those?
Yeah, sure. So Badoo is, mainly, Badoo is a site that I spend a lot of time on. Okay. And the reason I spend a lot of time on it is because it is technically not a dating site. I said Plenty of Fish is the biggest dating site in the world. Technically, it's not, but in all intensive practices, it actually is. So they don't market it as a dating site. They'd market it as kind of like a social network, or they call it social discovery.
I actually thought it was a dating site. Because I don't know, in the marketing, I got mixed up somewhere.
Yeah. They keep it a lot more neutral, and there's a good reason for that, because they tended to do really well in markets where online dating still carried a pretty big stigma, and so you find that Badoo is really popular in, basically Latin American countries, in, Eastern European countries. It's even popular in a lot of European countries like France, Italy, Germany. It's pretty popular. But the reality is it's not that big in the U.S. U.S. is one of the places where online dating caught on the fastest, and is the biggest, probably is still the biggest online dating market in the world. And right now, it just never really became that popular. It can work well if you're in a big city like New York or San Francisco, Chicago, maybe Miami. Miami could be good because there are a lot of Latin women. Yeah. But it tends to, even in those cities, attract kind of the women that are from countries where it's more popular. So, even if you're in New York, if you want to meet some Latin chicks that, recently moved to New York, or maybe some Russian women or whatever, Badoo could be attracting some of those women. It's worth checking out.
Because they've been using it in their home country, you mean?
Yeah, they've been using it in their home country. They're just familiar with the site. But Americans in general don't really know Badoo that well, but it is huge site on a world scale. So I
saw like a huge number. I can't remember what it was now, but they have a lot of people on that site. Maybe they're not all active. I mean, it's kind of like a Facebook, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like a Facebook. It's chat-based. So, it's becoming more and more popular as a mobile app. And so people are using it as kind of a chat site. So the communications happen fast. Unlike more traditional dating sites where there can be delays between messages of a day, 2 days, whatever, that's normal. Badoo, it's like, it's almost like you're live chatting. So everything happens fast. It can be kind of time consuming, but the key is for Badoo is to try to get women to check you out and to rate you and whatever without doing much first, or just focus only on the women that are online now. There's no point in messaging women that aren't online now because of just the nature of it being a chat site. So what I tend to do on Badoo, which is cool, and I recommend doing it for any site where you at least testing it for any site where it's possible, and even on OkCupid, this is possible now. You can pay a little bit of money, like a couple dollars, and they'll either three different ways you can use it right now, and this could change over time, but you can pay for them to put you at the very top of the site in something they call Spotlight. You can also pay for them to push you up in the search results. And you can also pay for them. They've got it. I know a lot of guys are getting more and more familiar with Tinder, which is a really popular mobile app right now, where you just swipe women to the left if you don't like them, swipe them to the right if you do like them. And if there's a match, then you're notified. You can message each other. Badoo and even OkCupid, they're adopting this concept into their site. And so on Badoo, you can pay for increased exposure. So lately, I've been getting lots of matches that way, where basically they're showing my picture to more women, and then by having something called superpowers, which costs a little money too, you can pay attention to. So Badoo is a free site, but I do recommend testing out some of this stuff. I've found that boosting yourself in the search engine doesn't do much, but some of the other stuff is really, really cool and can boost your results. And then you just focus on women that are online now. You have a couple copy and paste templates. I ideally test a few, see what works, and then you'll end up with a couple that work really well. And you can get great results on it. It is a good site, but for our American guys that are in the U.S., something maybe worth looking into, but there are probably better sites.
Right.
You had mentioned...
And Zoosk was another one, I think.
Zoosk is terrible.
Oh, yeah?
I recommend staying away from Zoosk. I haven't used it in a while. Maybe they've made improvements to their site, but if you look at just... for example, if you look on... There's a site called appannie.com. What App Annie does, it's a site where you can kind of see approximately how popular different mobile apps are and the different scoring. And so you'll see that it's a popular app. A lot of people are downloading it, but if you look at the score, it's getting a 2 out of 5. And none of the other apps that I know of are getting such low scores on their app. And I think it's two reasons. First, probably their app kind of sucks. And from what I've seen, it does. And second of all, it's because their site in general sucks. I don't know if they've changed it, but for a long time, you couldn't even sort the users by last login date. And that's a recipe for the online dating failure. So I don't recommend Zoosk. I think they've not provided a good platform for their users historically, and I don't trust that that's going to change. So it's not a site that I recommend.
All right. So you've been talking a lot about mobile apps. So you're using mobile apps with all of these sites, and that's what you recommend doing? Like, talk a little bit about it versus like using the web versus a mobile app.
Well, either one's fine, really, and we mainly use web for our customers. But things are becoming more and more mobile, and it's going to continue to happen. Recently, I was at a conference for the internet dating industry, and the founder of Plenty of Fish said that about 82% of their users right now are accessing their database via mobile apps. So what's happening? Huge. Yeah, it's huge. It's a huge shift, and what that means for us as guys that want to meet women online is that things are going to continue to get more and more quick, because when people are dealing with their mobile phones, they tend to be more responsive. They treat it a little more like text messaging. So messages get shorter and response times get quicker. And we're seeing that with the online dating sites now, and it's something that's important that we and all the users of the dating sites they adjust for quickly.
Okay, so do you think, like, if you're not responding quickly, like, just out of interest, like, at this point, like, so if you're not responding quickly because you're kind of not going with the times, is that going to hurt you? Yeah, it is. The biggest thing is just the easiest way to kind of conceptualize this is online dating is very momentum based. So basically these women are just getting blasted by so many guys on the dating sites. Some of them they're finding attractive. They like some of them. So you've just got a lot of competition at all times. Her attention span's short. So she's going to be, if her level of interest goes up and then you don't, she responds quickly and then you don't respond till the next day. So much can happen between that last message she sent and whatever, another guy that looks really interesting could have captured her interest.